Hi, a warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to Becoming Better, a channel dedicated to sharing knowledge for holistic self-development through great books. Have you ever experienced this? When someone reprimands or accuses you, the more you explain, the more others think you're making excuses or justifying yourself. When you present your side and try to prove you're not wrong, they perceive it as unreasonable, and the outcome is always the opposite of what you intended. You want to explain and help others understand, but in the midst of endless arguments and defenses, you end up damaging your own credibility and draining your energy, all while failing to escape the doubt or criticism of the other party. This often leads to frustration, arguments, and eventually, fractured relationships that cannot be repaired. In psychology, this is called the trap of self-justification. The more you prove and explain that you are right, that you are innocent, the more others believe you are wrong, unreasonable, or at fault. Over 100 years ago, the short story master Guy de Maupassant clearly highlighted the harm of falling into the paradox of self-justification through his story The Piece of String. Maupassant described how misunderstandings from others are like a rope that ties you down. The more you care and defend yourself, the tighter the rope becomes, gradually suffocating you between self-doubt and self-depletion. Today, Becoming Better would like to share with you a topic called Don't Try to Explain Yourself, through the short story The Piece of String by Guy de Maupassant. This will help us reflect on whether we are falling into the trap of self-justification and how we can make wiser choices in how we deal with ourselves and others. Let's listen together. Are you tying yourself up with a rope? The character Maître Hotchcorn is a farmer who lived his whole life frugally and saved everything. He couldn't bring himself to throw anything away. Even his clothes and shoes, no matter how old and worn out, were always mended. One day, on his way to the market in town, he saw a short piece of rope. Being familiar with a life of poverty, he immediately thought of many uses for this piece of rope in case he needed it. He hurriedly bent down to pick it up and carefully rolled it up. As he was holding the rope and inspecting it, he accidentally met the gaze of Malandane, someone he had a long-standing conflict with over cattle sales. Not wanting his enemy to see him picking up such a small rope so frugally, Malandane quickly hid it in his coat and pretended to search for something on the road. He then walked toward the market with his head held high, though his back was slightly hunched with embarrassment. After walking around the market for a while, he stopped at a restaurant to rest, and everyone was talking about someone who had lost a wallet. While he was listening intently, two police officers suddenly came and took him to the police station for questioning. It turned out that his enemy had reported him, claiming that he was the one who had found the wallet. He cried out in protest, terrified, and showed the rope to defend himself, asking the police to search him. The police found nothing and temporarily released him, saying he would be summoned later. As he stepped out of the police station, curious onlookers surrounded him, asking about the details. He reluctantly pulled out the rope and explained, turning his pockets inside out to prove he had nothing hidden. After hearing his explanation, the crowd laughed, and no one believed him. He became angry and took them to the spot where he had found the rope, recounting the whole story. However, the people still shook their heads and mocked him, saying he was pretending. He couldn't figure out what to do. He went around the market, trying to explain to each person, but no matter how hard he tried from morning till night, exhausted and drained, he couldn't clear away the doubts others had about him. Just as he was despairing, a piece of news spread throughout the town. A hired worker had confessed to the police that he was the one who had found the wallet and returned it to its owner. Upon hearing this news, Hotchcorn felt relieved and eagerly ran out of his house to proclaim his innocence to everyone. But unexpectedly, the rumors outside became even more absurd. Some people speculated that he had masterminded the whole thing, bribing the worker to take the fall for him. Others suspected he and the worker were accomplices, and when the matter was revealed, they would return the money for profit. The gossip overwhelmed him, making him feel suffocated, unable to eat or sleep, to the point that he could no longer focus on farming. From that point on, he wandered around the village every day, telling people about his injustice, but all anyone did was laugh at him, gossip about him, and whisper among themselves that he was just making excuses. The farmer became more and more withered, tortured by the rumors surrounding him. His mental state deteriorated, his body weakened, and in the end, he died from depression. Why did the old man try so hard to explain himself to others? You can see from the beginning that he quickly hid the rope when he was caught and felt embarrassed by the situation. Then, throughout his days of trying to explain after being misunderstood for picking up lost property, all his actions stemmed from a deep fear within him. He didn't want others to judge him as poor. In fact, just like the old man, we often encounter moments when we are misunderstood or blamed. Instinctively, most people will immediately want to explain themselves or clarify things, even fearing misjudgment. You strive to please others and find ways for them to form a good impression of you. In reality, every time you rush to justify yourself and prove your innocence, these reactions show that you're trying to protect your own ego and hiding some weakness or insecurity within. Therefore, you can't accept others' opinions because doing so would threaten your ego, and you feel the need to defend yourself immediately, as if life would only be complete when others approve of you. But as the author of Conversations with God rightly said, as long as you worry about what others think of you, they can turn you into a slave to their blame. Any reaction you give will be in vain. Your explanations will be seen as excuses. The more you try to defend yourself, the more ridiculous it will seem to others. The rope the old man took out to explain himself symbolizes the truth we desperately try to protect. But in the eyes of others, it is just something absurd. The more you hold on to it, the more it tightens around your neck. And the more you struggle to free yourself, the more the rope will tighten, eventually leading to suffocation. The best thing to do is stop struggling. But how? The answer is to stay silent. We often think that silence is weakness, that it's agreeing with others' judgments. But in reality, it's not. Silence is the strongest form of protest. Only those with strong inner strength can maintain calm in the face of any external reaction. But what kind of silence brings strength, rather than just avoiding and running away from the problem? Silence is when misunderstood, without the need to justify oneself. There's a story like this. At an art exhibition in England, a painter held water in his mouth and sprayed it evenly onto the paper as he was finishing a painting of peonies. A person saw this and loudly mocked him, saying, "Spitting water from your mouth and calling it art. How ridiculous!" At that moment, all eyes turned to the painter, but he just smiled and said nothing, continuing to work on his painting. Later, someone asked him, "Clearly, this is a method of ink running in painting. You could have said a few words to silence them. Why didn't you explain?" The painter replied, "If the person truly cared about art, they wouldn't need an explanation. They would understand on their own. But if they don't really care, no matter how much I explain, they won't understand." People's perceptions differ. We can't avoid misunderstandings and disagreements. When someone understands you, no explanation is necessary, and mutual understanding can be reached. But with those who don't understand you, no matter how much you speak, it will only create more conflict. Carnegie once said, "The only way to win an argument is to avoid arguing." Remember, there are many times in life when explaining yourself endlessly about who you are will only be useless. Because some people just want to hear what they want to hear, see what they want to see. Those with a strong inner self do not need to argue about who is right or wrong, or engage in debates over what is right or wrong. As one saying goes, if you stand on the peak of a mountain and look out, you will see the vast, endless sea. But if you are halfway up the mountain, all you will see is a desolate landscape. Everyone has different levels of perception, ways of thinking, even different visions and ambitions. So, when viewing a problem, the perspective will inevitably differ. Sometimes not arguing, not refuting, is a form of self-respect and respect for the other person. When you stay silent, it can help calm the atmosphere and prevent causing trouble for yourself. Typically, only a weak ego constantly seeks approval and validation from others and tries to prove itself. Strong individuals do not need to cater to the opinions of others and only focus on doing their own work well. Silence is when facing doubt, without being consumed by self-doubt. In addition to rebutting others, many people in life also bind themselves with their own self-criticism. When faced with doubt, they immediately blame themselves. For example, if there's a small mistake at work, they feel guilty and overthink. If there's a bit of unhappiness at home, they blame themselves for not giving enough attention to their loved ones. When they notice their partner is disappointed, they keep thinking they are inadequate and incapable of providing a better life for them. In the book Froggy Goes to the Doctor, it stated that there is no criticism stronger than self-criticism, and no judge more severe than ourselves. Let's stop self-criticism and accept our strengths and weaknesses. Pull yourself out of the mire of self-doubt. When you no longer doubt yourself, no opinions or conclusions from others can harm you. Silence is when facing hardship without complaining. When misunderstood, many people love to complain and seek sympathy from others, hoping someone will understand and comfort them. There's a saying, never complain to anyone. 80% won't care, and the other 20% will just laugh. I often hear people say, "Oh, I'm afraid of this person or that person calling me to vent." Every time they call, it takes hours, and they cry their heart out. If you're one of those people, when you hear this comment, would you want to share your troubles with that person? Many might think that the person who says this is a bad friend who's unwilling to share. So you may stop talking to them and go find someone else. But do you know that others may not think the same? Even if someone is willing to listen the first few times, will they get annoyed and start avoiding you if it keeps happening? Some people may argue that this view is too extreme, and sometimes we need to find a close friend to confide in. Many believe that a good friend is someone who is always willing to listen, and that venting and confiding are two different things. However, have you noticed that the word confide contains the word heart? It refers to the deep, hidden matters of the heart. If your heart is full of pain, you may have turned confiding into just complaining. I know everyone faces difficulties, but the pain we carry inside is often not significant to others, and no one likes to listen to constant negative energy. In life, if you complain, "I'm being bullied by my colleagues," people will likely think, "What did you do to make your colleagues dislike you?" If you tell someone, "My husband is treating me badly, and I want a divorce," they may think, "What did you do to make him act that way?" This doesn't mean people are malicious. It's just that humans are inclined to make assumptions. We always think there must be smoke where there's fire, and no one can fully experience your life. Therefore, others' opinions are often subjective, and they might hurt you even more. So don't complain about the ups and downs. Quietly cultivate a state of calm in the face of every difficulty. Read more books to enrich your thinking and inner self. When you are strong, you will naturally not fear any suffering, as you can embrace it with equanimity. And surely, no resentment can become a chain that binds you. Silence is when you face criticism or judgment without getting upset. The invisible bonds you don't want to let go of are the judgments and criticisms of others. In life, we often encounter people who act in ways that are difficult to understand. They are skilled at belittling others and pulling you into a vortex of negative emotions. You present your reasoning, state the facts, but they act as if they don't see or understand. Some people love to offer their subjective opinions and advice to others. When you love reading, they mock you as a person with shallow knowledge. When you exercise, they say only people with too much free time can do that. Even when you want to study further, take exams, or go abroad, there are people who say, "Why study so much? What's the point? Go out there. Look for a job or start a business to make money instead." Dealing with these kinds of people makes it difficult to explain the joy of studying, the benefits of exercising, or the satisfaction and fulfillment of self-improvement. They haven't experienced these things and aren't willing to try them, so no matter how well you explain, they won't understand. The more you explain, the more you show your lack of recognition and self-confidence. When facing judgments or criticism, many people feel upset or frustrated. Some try to change to meet others' expectations. If you're frustrated, you may fall into the spiral of complaining or even depression. If you try to change yourself based on society's judgments, you'll eventually be the loser, wasting time and harming your mental well-being. Some people, upon hearing criticism, immediately argue back or attack others' weaknesses. But when you engage in a dispute, there are usually only two outcomes. Either the other party responds and creates conflict, or you get dragged down into a miserable situation and tighten the bonds around yourself. In reality, we don't need to expect to be understood by everyone or to please everyone. There is a writer who expressed his viewpoint when faced with malicious slander from his colleagues. He said, "Every day he insults me, which proves that his life cannot do without me. As for me, I don't care, and it shows that my life can do without him." Talk to those who understand you, share your perspective with those who get you. Don't waste words on people whose energy is out of sync with yours. Simply put, you can't wake someone who doesn't want to wake up. Let them awaken on their own. On your own journey, let go of the sensitivity and weakness when you hear harsh words from others. Silence and walking away, refusing to be hurt by them, is the wisest choice. In reality, the bonds that Maupassant talks about are everywhere. They are baseless rumors and unpleasant criticisms in our daily lives. If you allow these invisible bonds to tie you down, they will choke you with suffocating feelings, leading to despair and self-destruction. Most of the pain in life comes from overvaluing the opinions of others and constantly trying to prove your greatness and perfection to the outside world. The writer San Mao once said, "Your explanations about me can't show even a fraction of who I am, but everything else shows who you are." Judging and criticizing others is a one-sided opinion that cannot affect your life or define your character. Take control of yourself. Don't pay attention to the noise from the outside world. And don't try to force anyone to acknowledge you. In the face of misunderstandings, criticism, and absurdity, silence is the strongest response. I hope silence will create a strong inner self for you. Let yourself know that it's time to release these invisible bonds. Thank you for listening. If you find this video helpful, share it with those who need it. Give me a like, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos every week. Once again, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.